Hey! Welcome back to the Iron Fist Songwriting Series Part 2, or as I've been talking about it when I share it on my own page, Mike and Scott Make a Thing. I've got a whole bunch of reactions to what Michael did last time around, including some funny thoughts about how, gee, that wasn't really what I intended, but that works. I've been kind of in a mind to give you a little bit of philosophy about songwriting this time, so I may get a little deep on you as well, and we'll see if we can make some some further forward progress in terms of creating some lyrics. I don't know if Mike has an intended second verse yet or not, but since I haven't gotten anything from him with regards to that, I figure I'll sit down and see if I can keep going conceptually and get us a little further along. Before we get to all that though, sit back, watch the show intro where a deeply rock and roll ominous voice tells you all about the awesomeness of Iron Fist. And maybe while you're watching that, you could click that subscribe button and get all of the goodness that comes your way. All right, we'll do the show intro, and then I will see you back on the other side. Yeah.
It began as a dream with two kids in high school. There was a spark, magic, chemistry. Then life happened. But 30 years later, the fire was reignited. The band is back, better and badder than ever. They prolifically turn out new music, songs hitting the tops of the charts in various corners of the world. Rockin' you since '82. Iron Fist.
And we're back. I thought I would wax philosophical a little bit before I get into the specifics of what I thought about Mike sending back to me and where I see it going from there. Because what we're doing in this process of knocking stuff back and forth, we're doing kind of in a vacuum. You know, what you see on these videos is literally the contact that Mike and I have, aside from some semi-irregular texting. In other words, since he stitched together the last episode 2 weeks ago, I haven't talked to him on the phone. I haven't even really texted with him that much. And when I text with him, it hardly ever has to do with something like a particular song we're working on. It's maybe it's something funny, or, you know, just what friends do and not necessarily songwriting partners. So it's always interesting to me to see how one idea that I might deliver with the intent that I have in my head gets interpreted by him in a way that I hadn't foreseen, and then he takes it and runs off with it in a different direction. And most of the time my reaction is, oh, that's cool. And in fact, this time here with Bloody Mary, that was also my reaction, but it put me in a mind of thinking about just the process of songwriting and the work that's involved in it, the work that's involved kind of like in the craft of it, because it's work to write even a bad song. It's work to write a bad song. You don't start out thinking you're going to write a bad song, of course. You know, you start out thinking, I've got the next White Christmas, you know, or I've got the next song that's going to pay the bills. And of course, almost nobody gets to that point. But the fact that you don't start out on the process of creating a song, you don't start that process saying, I'm going to write a really bad song, doesn't negate the fact that at the end of the day, sometimes you do. Sometimes you write a bad song. And it's not my intent here in this format to like call out other songwriters, especially songwriters who make millions of dollars more than I do at this process. But by way of example, and because, as you can no doubt tell by at least some of the swag you can see behind me here in my office, I am a Kiss fan, and Kiss has consistently written songs that I think are really good. And Kiss has sometimes written songs that I think are exceptional. And they have sometimes written songs that I think, that's really, it's really lame. It's really cheap. You know, you kind of just barfed that out, didn't you? So a song that is often, not universally, but often reviled in the Kiss catalog is Boomerang from Hot in the Shade. And just to look at the lyrics here, which I'm doing, just to look at the lyrics here, they go, gonna throw down the dice on a roll. It's a showdown, gonna walk on hot coals. Cut the deck, better place your bet, 'cause the game ain't over yet. Want to keep you under lock and key. Can't you see what you do to me? Get the noose. I know I'm going to hang because you're like a boomerang. I feel like I get the intent of what GS is getting at there, but I also feel like without knowing his mind, I feel like he chose the easiest way through that lyrically. And there are some clever internal rhymes there. Gonna throw down the dice on a roll. It's a showdown. Gonna walk on hot coals. You know, what I'm trying to say is, even though this song is widely regarded as near the bottom of the Kiss output, there's still some craft work there to get those inner rhymes. Throw down, showdown, on a roll, walk on hot coals. I mean, that's pretty good. Cut the deck, better place your bet. I don't know what he's talking about, but the rhyming is pretty good. The second verse is on the way up, you change your tune, so pay up and it ain't too soon. Can't make up or break up, can't feel a thing, you want a piece of everything. The rhyming there is pretty good. The fact that words like, or phrases like make up or break up, those are things that GS has used regularly, often in his songwriting. The fact that those are there doesn't keep that from being a poorly written song. I feel like that didn't make any sense. The rhyming is good. I still think it's a poorly written song, but the rhyming is good. This is what I'm getting at. The craft of songwriting is something that really does involve work, and you can put a lot of work into it, and the work can show, like these sort of decent rhymes that I'm reading. By the way, this is all copyright Bruce Kulick, Gene Simmons, just so we know. Keep our legal angles covered. I'm just trying to say that I don't think that Bruce and Gene set out to write a bad song. What they ended up doing was working hard on a song that most of the Kiss fans that I know think of as not a good song. Bad song. So you put the work in, and then you find out only after the fact, crap, we wrote a bad song. So what Mike and I are doing here, now to bring it back to us and Iron Fist, what Mike and I are doing here, tossing these ideas back and forth, obviously we're not intending to write a bad song. And I don't think we're writing a bad song. But the process is interesting as it unfolds here in front of you, because what I'm thinking in my mind as being really obvious to him doesn't always come across that way. And so he may take my idea and go in a very different direction from it, which made sense to him. And likewise, what comes back to me can be like, oh, cool, I hear where this is going. That may not have been his intent at all. So we're working hard here in our long-standing partnership to write something with the intent that it is something good. No, we're doing it with the intent that it's phenomenal. But more often than not, we'll settle for good. And we never know how it's going to come out until we reach the end of the process. And that's a little about what this whole video series is about letting you see the process, letting you be on the inside of it and see how sometimes it really is just a case of like flying by the seat of your pants. Oh, he makes this thing up. Okay, then I make this other thing up. Okay. And that's why I said before the show intro, you know, I've been calling this, excuse me, Mike and Scott make a thing, because that's what we're doing. We're just making a thing. We're creating a song where none had existed before, with the intent that it's phenomenal, and settling on it being good, and oh, please, hoping against hope that it's not a bad song. Okay, I may philosophize a little more. but first I need to eat, and then I'm gonna rewatch what he had not sent, but what he had posted on episode 2, and then I will get back to you with my thoughts on that. So, to be continued. Okay, so back. I ate. It's good. I wanted to take you over to the piano because what I had given Mike at first, so he's coming up. Hi. He's coming up to the end of the verses as that's the point at which I said we can go to the 4, back to A. Then I said let's go to that like minor 6, this, and then finally the 5, the dominant. When I did all that, I was not thinking of that being, ooh, earthquake. I was not thinking of that being the chorus chord progression. In my mind, it was so obvious that that was intended to be some sort of post-chorus, little break, noodly thing. The chords themselves aren't noodly, but you play those chords and you maybe throw down some wicked solo over top of it. That's the noodly thing. To throw those down before we get to the chorus, and then the chorus can be whatever. That was so clear in my mind. I don't understand why he didn't get that. I mean, what's the matter with you, partner? Can't you read my mind? And of course, the answer is no. Derp. Where we left off was the end of the chorus, end of the verse. We left off at the end of the verse. And I said, all right, here are some chords that I feel like could come up next. And that's all part of the creation process, right? The work process. The work process says we need somewhere to go after where we are. Let's try this. The notion of going from, so we end the verse on the tonic, bum, bum, dum, bum, bum, that A flat, that A is home base, that's our tonic. It's not uncommon to have a little bump up to the 4 chord there, which in our case is D, and noodle around a little bit. So I'm just trying to do something that isn't reinventing the wheel. I'm just trying to do something, all right, here's the thing that's done in songs. Let's try this. Bump it up to the 4, back to 1, then that minor 6 above the 5 chord that we need, E, but just as an interesting sound. I'm like, let's do something interesting here. So he took it and ran with it as the chorus chord progression. And you probably saw in the episode from last time where he's like, no, that I'm not seeing how that fits with the words. So then he took it and morphed it a little bit, right? He took it and ran it into, let's do the D and the A, and then the D and the A again. Then he went to that, and what we're working on would be like an F natural. Then he went to that F natural, bumped it up to a G, back to the F natural before finally ending on the E, which is the dominant where we want to be. And then so he recorded that, and you watched all of that. And if you didn't, go back and watch it because it's real good. So not at all what I was intending. It was a real surprise to me to watch the episode because, like I said earlier today, we're not in communication. We're not being secretive about it. It's just that he's got his thing that he's doing. I got my thing that I'm doing. We're doing our things. And in the meantime, we're trying to be songwriters and produce content for the channel. So he took it and ran with it, and it went in a totally different direction. You know what? I think it's pretty cool, especially the way he sang it. You know, he's basically letting his vocal line follow the progression. You know, we're Bloody Mary, in high heels, we're Bloody Mary, something that feels. And then he went down for that, but that's cool. It's the right chord. So he's just letting his vocal line follow the chord progression, and that's totally good. Again, it's not about being, I was just going to talk myself into a corner, which is not uncommon for me. I was going to say it's not about being super tricky, when really that makes it sound like what we're doing is super basic. The next batch of philosophizing I do for you is going to have to deal with when you can, when you run the risk of both underbaking and overbaking your song. When the song becomes, you didn't put enough thought into it versus when you actually put too much thought into it. But I ain't going to do that now because I need to go to class. But I wanted to get this last one recorded here because I was just watching the last video and just wanted to at least give some feedback to him, excuse me, about the process that he's gone through. I think the chords are great. I think it works. And now that we've arrived at something that works, I don't necessarily see the need to do much more with it. He'll probably talk about putting on some ear candy over top of that, a second guitar part, or 15 more guitar parts. That's all his bag to do in the studio. There's no reason for us to overbake the song at this point. This piece of the song is kind of set up. I could even make the corollary to what Mike does with his car restoration. What we're doing here with the songs is we're working on one specific part. The part that we worked on in the last episode apparently was getting us out of the chorus, out of the verse, and into the chorus. We're there. We've got that part done. Let it be now. Now it's time to work on another part. And if we work on enough of the parts and stitch all the parts together, eventually we get a complete song. That's the process. So I'm going to go do this class, and I am going to think some about some of the lyric construction for a second verse. And I managed to say verse that time and not chorus. I'll think about some lyric construction for the second verse. If he has some already, okay. If he doesn't, here's some ideas, and that can be bounced off of him. So off to class. I will think about some more word things, and then I'll probably get back at you, at this point I'm guessing tomorrow. I'll get back at you tomorrow with a little more philosophizing about the concept of underbaked versus overbaked songs. So until I see you tomorrow, which for you will probably be exactly the next thing that you see in the video. Hasta la vista. Okay, I told you we'd be back, and I told you it'd probably be a new day. So here we are. It's a new day, and I went back to watch the last episode to see what Reb had to say about where he thought the song was going from the point that I sent him stuff. Oh, that was a hard sentence to make. I don't know why. So I knew there was a place in there where he had talked about the concept of the song, and indeed, he had said, so what's the concept behind this song? No clue. He said something about old songs that he'd written have this theme, nymphomaniac woman who would live a normal life by day and go prowling the streets at night, blah, boring. And I agree with that. You know, I feel like that's the kind of prerogative, the songwriting prerogative for like either 30-something rock stars who have been rock stars basically their whole adult lives, or the teenage boys who listen to their music, which is precisely where we were when we started this band. You know, we were teenage boys who were listening to the music of grown men who had been rock stars their whole adult lives, and they were used to the concept of nymphomaniac women. I don't know, whatever. That's not where I am at this point in my life. I'm not into that, and I can tell Mike's not either. So, point being, he then went on to say, I see Bloody Mary being more like a homicidal maniac, and that piqued my interest. He said when she's bloody, she's literally bloody. So we're not talking about a metaphorical concept of Bloody Mary that she, whatever. She's literally like a homicidal killer. I like that a lot. And then he just said he thought that it needed kind of a horror thriller vibe, and said something about maybe turning this into this year's Halloween song, but I agree with him. That still is months and months away. Even though we often get to the point where we are scrambling to get the Halloween song finished. I don't think this needs to be that. I think this needs to be what it is, and then let's get it out. So I took a look at the lyrics, The first stuff was innocent by day, a prowler at night. She walks the way so long as there is light. But when the sun descends, the beast inside's awake. Sinlessness it ends, and mortal souls will quake. I'm a real stickler in lyric creation for keeping accentuation where it belongs and precise syllable counts. So I think Mike is a little looser with his sense of syllable counts. As long as he can sing it in the same spot over the same chord progression, he's good with that. But I'm really like nitpicky and wound pretty tightly about keeping those syllable counts the same. So I did that, and I'm trying to keep, of course, his rhyme scheme intact, which is line 1 and 3 rhymes and line 2 and 4 rhymes, and then go with his concept that she's like literally a homicidal maniac. So I came up with ordinary shell, abnormal inside, creature from hell, her mask is cast aside. At work she is a saint, by night she takes a blade, there is no restraint, her sanity is frayed. So those can be the words, those can be a start on the words. The first set of 4 lines that I created feels a little stream of consciousness, which I'm fine with that. Sometimes I feel like I especially need a little more stream of consciousness in my lyric creation and not quite so much thinking. But whatever. This is what I'm going to send him along with these videos so he can stitch it all together. But it works with the way he's singing it. Ordinary shell, abnormal inside, creature from hell, her mask is cast aside. At work she is a saint, by night she takes a blade, there is no restraint, her sanity is frayed. So that can all work. Whether or not that ends up being what we go with has to do more with what I had said yesterday that I would talk about now later, apparently today too, because I need to get to class. Just the idea that a song can be both overbaked and underbaked. So I think I'm going to do this class and maybe come back and do one more short little segment here about that concept, a little more philosophizing for you, and then I'll ship all this off to Mike and he can get the episode out. So that's what I've got, that's my plan, and we'll see where we go from here. All right, that's it. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I said I would come back for one more go around and just do a little bit of philosophizing about the concept of songs being underbaked versus overbaked. And I have my thinking putty here. Squishy. And I don't even know if you want to hear any of this or care. For me to philosophize about songwriting in terms of whether they're underdone or overdone, I think is just a condition of the fact that I like to hear myself talk. And it may not have value beyond that. Having said that, here we go. With the idea that a song can be both underdone, underbaked, or overbaked, is the idea that sometimes I feel like songs exist in a way that I hear them and I think, that's not really done. You didn't put quite enough thought into that. It feels like it was kind of thrown together. And I could list some off, you know. I mean, I started this whole thing by talking about Boomerang and how I felt like Boomerang was, you know, pretty much at the bottom of a lot of people's favorite Kiss songs. Excuse me. But rather than throw anybody else under the bus, you know, I guess I can just talk about our songs. And I have a danger. I feel like I skate real close to the edge a lot of the times in terms of like overbaking my contributions to songs. And I don't know always what that is. Sometimes I think it's I like to think I'm really clever with my lyric writing. And I owe a lot of that just to the kinds of songwriters I listen to, which is a wide gamut from Kiss to Cheap Trick, whose lyrical content is often pretty obscure. I think Rick Nielsen writes really well, but I don't always know what the songs are about because they're just shrouded sometimes in words that don't really adequately deliver the concept to me. But I listen to that stuff, and I also listen to Barry Gibb and Cheryl Wheeler, and these are people who I think are really, really stellar songwriters. Rodgers and Hart, you know, if you want to go back to the Great American Songbook. So I think lyrically sometimes I get myself into a bad situation where I'm trying to be as clever as the songwriters whom I really admire, and it makes it so that my songs or lyrics especially can sound really overdone. Um, I think some good examples of that might be like Breaking the Rock. I worked really hard to make Breaking the Rock lyrically very majestic and stick to this theme. And I think the end result is a very good song, but it really skates the edge of being overbaked lyrically. One that we have not released yet, but is nearly done, is called Fearless. And that's another one where the original concept for the song came to me as a pre-chorus. I want to hit the highway full throttle, catch lightning in a bottle. I just loved the way that sounded. I want to hit the highway full throttle, catch lightning in a bottle. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. So for me, I wanted to write a whole song around the idea of being fearless. But some of the things that I put into the song, some of the lyrical concepts I put into the song, really make it run, again, very close to the edge of being overbaked. It would be a better song, possibly, if it was a little simpler lyrically. And like I said, that's just my peculiarity, and that could also be my degree getting in the way. You know, as a trained composer, first and foremost, sometimes I have this tendency to want to overthink the music that I create in such a way so that it becomes academically more palatable, and I don't think that always makes the best song. Some of the simpler songs that you might think would be underbaked actually are just perfect. I mean, Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman, I think, is a fantastic song. But all he's doing is repeating the same thing over and over. Pretty woman walking down the street. Pretty woman, the kind I'd like to meet. Pretty woman. Oh, you look lovely as you can be. You know, the whole concept is just around this idea that he saw a pretty woman walking down the street and he made a song out of it. A concept like that should be underbaked, but it's not. So yeah, I can have a tendency sometimes to underbake what I do, not to underbake. I have a tendency to overbake what I do, and the songs come out just a little too burned or crispy or something. So I think when we hit it just right, the songs are really great. And when my contributions tend to be a little overbaked, they're just that. They're a little overdone. So something like this here with Bloody Mary, when I deliver a second verse to Mike, to see what he thinks of it, which he may not even use, but when I deliver a second verse to Mike, kind of in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, this hews to the theme that he said. Now, is it overdone? Is it too much? Is there an imbalance between what he delivered in the first set of lyrics and what I'm giving him on the back end as a potential second verse for lyrics? So we'll see. I have no idea what he thinks. And I'll learn it pretty much when you do, because I'll watch the thing to see what he decided to put in. So that's all I've got for today. I'm going to get that, not silly putty, but thinking putty out of my hands. And I'm going to sign off, let him handle all of the outro stuff, and we will see you on the flip side once we know where we're going next. All right. Ciao.
Thanks, Scott. So I'll philosophize a little bit also, although he is obviously much more philosophizable than I am because of his extensive music background. I'm just an auto mechanic who does the stuff that needs to be done here. But I wanted to talk a little bit more and piggyback off of what he said, because as a frontman and a vocalist, there's challenges that I have sometimes when he gets to being a little bit more intellectual in some of the lyrics, and that is just simply remembering the lyrics. So as he used the example of pretty woman, pretty woman, pretty woman, pretty woman, as a lead vocalist, that's pretty easy to remember. When you get into songs like Lovin' You that we did on the album, I believe that was off of Don't Fake It 4 or 5 years ago, that's actually quite complex to try to remember how that all goes. And don't get me wrong, it's not a complaint on my part, but I have to work really hard to memorize those lyrics. And the first few times we actually performed that song, I had to have my analog teleprompter on stage to be able to sing that song, because I just could not hang on to the lyrics. And we've got a fair number of songs that are like that. Now, am I saying those songs are overbaked? No, I'm not. But they're definitely a little more intellectual and a little bit harder to hang on to than a story song like Viceville, for example, where the story progresses very good, or Does It Take Two, another story song that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's a natural progression there. So I can see the tendency that maybe we have sometimes, and I'm not saying I haven't written songs like that. I'm certainly not pointing fingers at Scott alone, because I've done that as well. I have songs that, excuse me, I have songs that I've written that I have a hard time remembering the lyrics for. And it's because they're a little more complicated, a little bit more complex. And I would give you an example of one. Can't think of one right now, but I'm sure when he sees this, he'll bust my chops next episode and say, yeah, what about this one? So I hope he does. So it's another element that plays into how we write songs when, it's busy for me up there, leading the group, trying to keep the energy going with the audience, playing lead guitar, all that I do. I have to really work hard to drill things down into muscle memory, and when the lyrics are a little bit more complicated, it gets a little more difficult. I'm a little bit more meat and potatoes probably in my songwriting than he is. He pointed out that probably his education sometimes influences how he writes. Well, of course it does, and I'm sure my lack of education does the same thing. We are the sum of our parts, right? So I think this is valuable in many ways, and Scott and I had actually talked about this with some of his composition students. Not talked with this composition, but talked about us having a conversation with his composition students when the world was, when you could actually be around people. And just talking about the two different approaches that we have to songwriting, where he comes at it as a doctorate level music composition, and I come at it very much more from an intuitive, guttural, just the way I write music is much less educated than he is. And I think that's what provides the balance in our songwriting. And you probably picked that up even in this video. So as he mentioned, we are not communicating about this. This video is the only communication we're having about this song. And that's on purpose. That's by design. And quite frankly, we both have been slammed with a lot of other things. So other things that we might be working on right now that we would be communicating about, we're not even doing that right now. So the communication's been, for example, quite often I will do morning metal moments with Mike. I'll send him a 3 to 5 minute video as I'm driving and just give him my thoughts about what's going on with the band and life around the band and social media and whatever happens to be on my mind, or talk about concepts or whatever. And I haven't had time to even do those lately. So this really is, we're just embracing you into the communication of this song and letting this be the medium that we communicate with, and involving you in that by design. So again, reinforcing what he said. Last thing, the second verse. What had I come up with for the second verse? Nothing. Not that I hadn't thought about it, but I just hadn't taken the time to really sit down and focus. As he said, we've both been doing our thing. We've both been really busy. Just been a lot going on in the last month, and we're a little bit behind even on putting out episodes for this show because of just everything that's been going on. So I didn't really have anything in mind other than what I shared in the last episode, which he shared with you about this being a literal, bloody, homicidal maniac person. And I think he knocked it out of the park with the lyrics. I don't think those lyrics are overbaked. I don't think they're over complex. I don't think they're too, I can't think of the word, ambiguous or... I think they're right to the point. They really pound home where we're going with the song and what the message of the song is. So I think he's done a good job with it. So we really probably just need to come up with, I'd like to really get some kind of a hooky break, and then we're going to be able to get into pounding home just how we want the song to feel musically. And we've got basic chord progressions, but we've not put any ear candy in it yet. And once we get a better feel for things here, as far as getting the second verse, which I will work on, getting the second verse put together, and ears bugging me, sorry. Get a second verse put together as far as recording it in and being able to hear the flow of that. Then I think we'll get some ideas on where we want to go. Maybe we do want to break that verse and that chorus apart. I had no idea he was talking about just a quick progression from the chorus into, or verse into the chorus. See, there's something about this. We're both calling the verse the chorus. A quick progression out of that verse into this chord progression and then into a chorus that we had determined. Yet to me, it was just like, this works. So I didn't pick that up, and it probably was on me because it probably was more communicated there than I realized, but that's communication, right? So if it wasn't for miscommunication, most of us wouldn't communicate at all. All right, enough from me. You've got a huge amount of information in this that if you are into songwriting, you're probably going to want to watch this episode more often or more than once to pick up all the stuff that he's shared. I mean, you really are getting a doctoral level view of writing rock music or songs in general, particularly lyrics, from him, and that's worth its weight in gold, and you're getting it for free. So that really should encourage you to subscribe to the channel, because we are going to continue to put out more of this songwriting series part 2. We've got songwriting part 1, where we took a song from concept all the way through to release, and it's all here. Stranded in the Shadows, which was last year's spooky tune, we took you from concept to completion and a released track that's right here on the channel. So look for that. Just a little bit about the channel. If you go over to the playlists, you'll find things broken up into what should be pretty comprehensive libraries of videos that you can find helpful or at least enjoyable from the earliest days of Fistory, when we reunited the band in the early teens of the 2000s. All the way up to current day. There's concert footage, there's music videos, there's more of this kind of stuff. I think there's even one video I did on how I record guitars. So it's a wealth of information that you're going to want to take advantage of. So the first thing you need to do, subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. Hit that bell so that you receive notifications. And we are on Facebook and on Instagram. Facebook, it's /Iron Fist Online. On Instagram, it is /Iron Fist _online. And Scott's already said it, but I'll say it again, rock.